Los Angeles, California, March 1970. The sun hung low over Sunset Boulevard, casting long golden streaks across the pavement. But inside the Dragon's Lair boxing and martial arts gym, the light felt different, muted, filtered through dusty windows and years of sweat-stained history. This wasn't a place built for comfort. It was a place built for transformation, for breaking men down and building them back stronger. It was a Tuesday afternoon, just past 3 p.m. The usual rush of fighters had already come and gone. The echoes of their presence still lingered in the air, the faint smell of liniment, leather, and effort. The gym breathed like a living thing, quiet now, but never truly at rest. The rhythmic thud of fists striking heavy bags broke the silence. In the center of it all, inside the main ring, stood a man who believed he ruled this world. Tommy the Hammer Morrison. Not the future heavyweight star the world would later know, but another man entirely, one carving his path through the brutal circuits of Southern California's kickboxing scene. At 28 years old, Tommy was already a name whispered with respect and fear. 17 professional fights, 17 victories, 14 of them by knockout. Those numbers didn't just represent success, they fed something darker inside him. Confidence had turned into arrogance. Discipline had twisted into ego. And now, standing tall at 6 feet 1 inch, his long arms snapping forward like whips as he hammered the heavy bag, Tommy carried himself like a man who believed he was untouchable. His body told the story of years of war, muscles carved with purpose, a nose slightly bent from past battles, scar tissue above both eyes like permanent reminders of the price of glory. But his eyes told a different story. They held something cold, something dismissive, something dangerous. Faster on the jab, his trainer barked from ringside. Eddie, an older man weathered by decades in the fight game. He had trained. Capians watched careers rise and fall, and more importantly, he had seen what arrogance could do to a fighter. "Keep that right hand up. Don't get sloppy now." Tommy didn't respond with words. He responded with violence. Crack! A sharp combination ripped through the air, left jab, right cross, hook to the body, uppercut. The heavy bag swung violently, chains rattling as if protesting the assault. "Good," Eddie muttered, though his tone carried caution rather than praise. Tommy smirked slightly. He knew he was good. No better than good. In his mind, there wasn't a man in this gym, maybe even in this city, who could stand with him. And that belief, that quiet, poisonous certainty, was about to be shattered. Near the entrance of the gym, far from the spotlight of the ring, another man worked quietly. He didn't draw attention. He didn't demand it. Dressed in simple, worn jeans and a faded gray t-shirt, he moved a mop slowly across the floor, cleaning away the marks, left behind by fighters chasing greatness. At first glance, he looked invisible. Just another worker. Just another man doing a job no one respected. But if someone had taken the time to truly observe him, they would have noticed something unusual. The way he moved, every step balanced, every motion controlled, efficient. There was no wasted energy. Even in something as mundane as mopping the floor, there was precision. There was awareness. There was mastery. His forearms were lean but powerful, muscles coiled beneath the skin like steel cables. His posture was relaxed, yet perfectly aligned. His eyes, constantly watching, quietly absorbing everything around him. This was no ordinary man. This was Bruce Lee. But no one here, at least no one who mattered yet, knew that. To Tommy Morrison, he was nothing more than the janitor, a background figure, an afterthought, someone beneath notice. Tommy had seen him around the gym over the past week, always cleaning, always silent, always staying out of the way. And like many men blinded by ego, Tommy never questioned it, never wondered why a janitor moved like a fighter, never questioned why his presence felt different. Instead, he made assumptions. He's probably just some immigrant, Tommy had thought more than once. Lucky to even have a job here. And that assumption, that quiet dismissal of another human being, was the first mistake. The truth was far different. Bruce Lee hadn't come to the gym to clean. He had come to observe. The gym's owner, an old acquaintance, had offered him an opportunistic first option to invest in the facility before it went on the market. It was a chance to transform the place into something greater, something aligned with Bruce's philosophy of martial arts. But Bruce didn't make decisions lightly. He studied environments the same way he studied opponents. He watched, he listened, he understood. So, over the past week, he had come at different times, sometimes training quietly, sometimes standing in the shadows, and yes, sometimes helping clean. Because to Bruce Lee, no task was beneath a martial artist. In fact, it was the opposite. True mastery came from humility, from discipline in the smallest actions, from understanding that greatness wasn't proven by how you treated equals, but by how you treated those with nothing to offer you. He had cleaned his own school, mopped his own floors, worked beside his students, not above them. Because to him, martial arts wasn't just about fighting. It was about character, about awareness, about becoming more than just strong, becoming complete. Today, the gym's actual janitor had called in sick. The owner had mentioned it casually, slightly frustrated about needing the place cleaned before the evening crowd arrived. Bruce hadn't hesitated. He simply picked up the mop. No announcement, no explanation, just action. Because to him, it was nothing. Just another task. Just another moment to practice presence. Back in the ring, Tommy wiped sweat. His brow and glanced toward the entrance. His eyes landed on Bruce. And something shifted. A thought. A cruel little idea forming in the back of his mind. A chance to remind himself and everyone else of where he stood in the hierarchy of this world. "Hey!" Tommy called out sharply. His voice cut through the gym like a whip. "Janitor, come here!" The sound echoed. The few remaining people in the gym turned slightly, sensing something in his tone. Bruce paused. Slowly, he lifted his head. Their eyes met for the first time. There was no anger in Bruce's expression. No reaction at all. Just calm, quiet awareness. He had heard that tone before. Many times. The tone of someone who believed they were above others. The tone of someone who had never truly been tested. For a brief moment, Bruce considered ignoring him, continuing his work, letting the moment pass. But curiosity made him stop. He set the mop aside gently and began walking toward the ring, each step unhurried, controlled, almost effortless. When he spoke, his voice was calm, clear, perfect English. "Yes?" Tommy blinked slightly. That wasn't what he expected. But the surprise faded quickly, replaced again by that familiar arrogance. He pointed lazily toward a perfectly clean section of the floor near his gym bag. "You missed a spot," Tommy said, a small, cruel smile forming on his lips. "Go clean it again, and bring your mop. I want to see you do it properly." Eddie shifted uncomfortably at ringside. He could already see where this was going, and he didn't like it. "Tommy, leave the guy alone," Eddie said quietly. But Tommy didn't even look at him. "I'm just making sure he does his job," Tommy replied coldly. "This is a professional gym. Standards matter." Bruce held his gaze for a moment longer. Then, without a word, he turned and walked back to retrieve the mop. The tension in the room began to build. Slowly, quietly, like a storm just beginning to form. And no one there, not even Tommy Morrison, realized they were about to witness something they would never forget. The air inside the gym had changed. What had once been a quiet afternoon filled with the steady rhythm of training now carried something heavier, something electric. The kind of tension that crawled under your skin without warning. Every eye, whether openly or from the corner of vision, was now fixed on the unfolding moment. In the center of it all stood Tommy Morrison, still confident, still towering, still convinced he was in control. And just a few steps away, calm, silent, and composed, was Bruce Lee. Bruce returned with the mop and bucket without a word. There was no resistance, no visible frustration, no attempt to correct Tommy. If anything, his calmness only fueled Tommy's arrogance further. "Slower," Tommy said, leaning casually against the ropes, folding his arms like a man watching a performance. "I want to make sure you don't miss anything this time." Bruce lowered the mop onto the already weightless floor and began cleaning, deliberately, smoothly, each motion controlled, precise, almost meditative. To anyone truly paying attention, there was something almost hypnotic about it. But Tommy wasn't paying attention. He wasn't seeing. He was projecting his own need for dominance. "Yeah, that's better," Tommy continued, his voice dripping with mock authority. "And when you're done there," he lifted one foot, placing it on the bottom rope, extending his shoe outward. "You can clean these two." A faint scuff marked the edge of his training shoe, barely noticeable. But to Tommy it was an excuse. "Make them shine," he added with a smirk. Eddie turned away slightly, shaking his head. "This is too much," he muttered under his breath. Then louder, "Tommy, that's enough." But Tommy snapped back immediately. "I pay membership here," he said sharply. "I have standards. If something's not done right, I have every right to say something." Eddie didn't argue further. "Not," he agreed. But because he knew that tone, that stubborn, inflated ego that refused to listen. He had seen it before, and he had seen how it ended. Bruce stopped. The mop came to a gentle halt against the floor. The faint squeak echoed louder than it should have. Slowly, he raised his head. His eyes met Tommy's again. This time, something had changed. Not anger, not aggression, but decision. A line had been quietly drawn. "I don't think I'll be cleaning your boots," Bruce said. His voice was soft, calm, but absolute. For a moment, silence. Tommy laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that filled the gym. "Excuse me?" he said, stepping off the ropes. "You work here, you do what members tell you, that's how it works." Bruce shook his head slightly. "I don't work here," he replied. "I'm helping a friend." He set the mop aside. "I'm done helping now." And began walking away. That was the moment everything snapped. Tommy's face tightened, his jaw clenched. Being disobeyed was one thing. Being ignored? Unacceptable. In one fluid motion, Tommy stepped through the ropes and dropped from the ring. His shoes hit the canvas floor with a sharp thud. He moved quickly, closing the distance, stepping directly into Bruce's path, blocking him. "You don't walk away from me," Tommy said, his voice low now. "Dangerous." He leaned in slightly, using his size, his presence, his intimidation. He expected fear, expected hesitation, expected submission. But Bruce didn't move, didn't step back, didn't react. He simply looked at him, calm, still. One word, nothing more. Tommy smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Make me." And then he crossed a line he could never uncross. Reaching into his gym bag, Tommy grabbed his water bottle. He unscrewed the cap slowly, deliberately, maintaining eye contact the entire time. Then he tipped it forward. Water poured out onto the freshly cleaned floor, spreading across the surface. Ruining Bruce had just done. A clear message, a deliberate act of disrespect. "Oops," Tommy said with a cruel grin. "Looks like you've got more work to do." "Janitor!" The gym fell completely silent. Even the sounds of training had stopped. No one moved. No one spoke. They were witnessing something ugly now, something beyond arrogance. This was humiliation. This was cruelty. Eddie closed his eyes briefly. "That's it," he whispered. Bruce looked down at the water. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, he looked back up at Tommy. And then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It wasn't amused. It was something else entirely. The kind of smile that appears right before a storm breaks. The kind that says a decision has been made. "You want to fight," Bruce said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Clear, direct, unavoidable. "You've been looking for a reason," he continued calmly. "To prove you're better, to assert dominance." He stepped slightly closer, not aggressively. "God, then you and me, right now, in the ring." For a split second, Tommy froze. Then he burst out laughing. Loud, uncontrolled, doubling over slightly as if the idea itself was absurd beyond belief. "You?" he said between laughs. "You want to fight me?" He wiped a tear from his eye. "Do you have any idea who I am?" Bruce didn't blink. "I know exactly who you are." "A beat. Then do you know who I am?" Tommy straightened up, still grinning, still dismissive. "You're the janitor," he said, "and you're about to get hurt." He gestured toward the ring. "But hey, if you want to embarrass yourself..." His smile widened. "I'm happy to help." Eddie stepped forward quickly. "Tommy, no." His voice was firm now, serious. "You don't know this guy." Tommy rolled his eyes. "Oh, here we go. He moves like a fighter," Eddie continued. "I'm telling you this isn't a good idea." But Tommy had already decided. "I'm not apologizing to him," he snapped. "Get in the ring. Get out of my gym." Bruce's gaze didn't change. "It's not your gym," he said quietly. And then without another word he turned and walked toward the ring. But the way he moved, that's when Eddie's expression changed. Because that wasn't how an untrained man walked. That wasn't hesitation. That wasn't uncertainty. That was familiarity. Precision. Experience. Bruce reached the ring, placed one hand lightly on the rope, and in one smooth, effortless motion he stepped through. No wasted movement, no adjustment, like water flowing through an opening. Eddie's stomach dropped. "Oh no!" he whispered. Behind him, Tommy followed. Still confident, still convinced, still blind. He tightened his gloves, bouncing lightly on his toes. "I'll take it easy on you," he called out mockingly. "Wouldn't want to kill the janitor." Bruce reached for the hem of his shirt and pulled it off. What was revealed changed everything. His body wasn't bulky, wasn't oversized, but it was something far more. Dangerous, every muscle defined, every line purposeful. Strength without excess, power without waste. A body built not for show but for function, for speed, for precision, for impact. And then small. Real, proof of years of training, years of combat, years of discipline. Eddie stared. His eyes widened, and finally it clicked. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. Bruce folded his shirt calmly, then looked up. "My name is Bruce Lee." The gym froze. Time itself seemed to stop. Every person in that room knew that name. Everyone. The actor, the martial artist, the man redefining combat, the teacher of legends, the force of nature. Tommy's smile disappeared. Completely. His face drained of color. Bruce Lee? He repeated. Disbelief. Shock. Fear. Beginning to creep in. There's only one, Bruce said. Calm. Unshaken. Then he stepped forward. Just slightly. Now. Pause. Do you want to apologize? His eyes locked onto Tommy's. Or do you want? And in that moment, standing in front of greatness, faced with a choice that could define him, Tommy Morrison did the only thing his pride would allow. He chose to fight. For a moment that felt longer than time itself, no one moved. The entire gym, every fighter, every witness, every breath in the air hung suspended between two choices. Apology! In the center of the ring stood Bruce Lee, calm, still, almost impossibly relaxed. Across from him stood Tommy Morrison, a champion, an undefeated force, a man who had never backed down from a fight. And yet, for the first time in a long time, doubt had entered his mind. You could see it in his eyes, that flicker, that hesitation, the realization of what stood in front of him. Bruce Lee wasn't just a name. He was a legend in motion, a man whose reputation alone had traveled across continents, across disciplines, across worlds. Tommy swallowed, his throat dry, his heartbeat faster now. But then something dark arose, up inside him, stronger than fear, stronger than logic. I don't care who you are, Tommy said. His voice wasn't as steady as before, but it was loud enough to convince himself. You're in my ring now. He raised his hands, set his stance. I'm a professional fighter. A breath, a final step forward. Let's do this. Eddie stepped closer to the ropes, desperation in his eyes. Tommy, don't. His voice was quieter now, not commanding, not instructing. Warning, you don't understand what you're getting into. But Tommy didn't look at him, didn't listen. Couldn't, because if he did, he might have walked away, and his ego wouldn't allow that. I know exactly what I'm getting into, Tommy snapped. 1 minute, he pointed at Bruce. That's all I need. A faint, strained smile appeared. I'm going to knock out Bruce Lee and become famous. Bruce exhaled slowly. A soft sigh, not out of fear, not out of doubt, but something closer to disappointment. He had given. Tommy has a way out, a chance to step back, to learn without pain. But pride had sealed his fate. No gloves, Bruce said calmly. No rules. A beat. You wanted to prove dominance. His eyes sharpened just slightly. Here's your chance. Tommy nodded quickly. Fine by me. He tore off his gloves and threw them aside. They hit the canvas with a dull thud. Heavy, like the final nail in a coffin he couldn't yet see. The two men stepped forward, now standing just feet apart. The contrast between them was striking. Tommy larger, heavier, visibly powerful. Bruce smaller, lighter. But something else entirely, something harder to define. Something dangerous in a way that couldn't be measured. Around them, the small crowd edged closer. No one spoke. No one dared. They knew they were about to witness something extraordinary. Eddie looked at both men. His hands trembled slightly. Are you both sure about this? He asked one last time. Start it, Tommy snapped. Bruce said nothing. He didn't need to. Eddie swallowed. Then begin. Tommy exploded forward. Fast, sharp, professional. Years of training unleashed in an instant. Left jab, right cross, left hook, a perfect combination. The kind that had ended fights. The kind that had broken opponents. The kind that should have landed. But it didn't. Bruce moved, not dramatically, not visibly to the untrained eye. Just enough. His head shifted inches. His body adjusted slightly. His weight transferred effortlessly. And every single punch missed. Tommy blinked. Reset. Attacked again. Another combination. Faster this time. More aggressive. Nothing. It was like hitting air. Like striking smoke. Bruce wasn't blocking. Wasn't parrying. Wasn't even retreating. He simply wasn't there. A murmur rippled through the gym. Confusion. Disbelief. Tommy's breathing changed. Subtle at first. Then sharper. Frustration creeping in. He stepped in harder. Threw everything into a powerful right hand. A knockout punch. The kind ended careers. Bruce dipped under it effortlessly. And in the same instant, he was inside. Closer than Tommy expected. Closer than Tommy could react to. Close enough to whisper. 7 seconds, Bruce said softly. Calm. Measured. Time's almost up. Tommy's eyes widened. And in that fraction of a second, everything changed. Bruce moved. It wasn't a big motion. No dramatic wind-up. No telegraph strike. Just a small movement. Barely an inch. His first shot forward. A precise, controlled explosion. landing directly into Tommy's solar plexus. The 1-inch punch. A technique made legendary by Bruce Lee. Not powered by distance, not powered by brute strength, but by perfect mechanics. Energy traveling from the ground, through the legs, through the hips, the shoulder to a kinetic chain, executed flawlessly. The impact was devastating. Tommy's body reacted instantly. His eyes went wide. All the air in his lungs exploded outward in a violent shh. His hands dropped. His stance collapsed. His legs. He staggered backward, gasping, desperately trying to breathe, but nothing came. Panic, confusion, pain. He had been hit before. Hard, by professionals, by champions. But this was different. This wasn't force. This was precision. This was perfection. His diaphragm spasmed uncontrollably. His body refused to respond. His mind couldn't catch up. He tried to lift his hands, tried to fight, but he couldn't. His legs buckled, and he dropped to one knee. The gym was silent, completely silent. Bruce didn't move, didn't follow up, didn't attack again. He simply stood there, watching. It was already over. Tommy fell forward, onto his hands, gasping. Broken. 10 seconds. Eddie looked down at his stopwatch. His hand shaking. 10 seconds, he whispered. 17 fights. 17 victories. 14 knockouts. A champion. Destroyed in 10 seconds. With one punch. No one spoke. No one. They had just witnessed something beyond fighting. Something beyond technique. Something unforgettable. Bruce turned calmly. Stepped out of the ring, picked up his shirt, put it on, as if nothing had happened. Then, toward the mop. The same floor, the same task, as if defeating a champion and cleaning a floor were equal, neither above him, neither beneath him. He knelt beside Tommy briefly, his voice now calm again, gentle. The storm had passed. The lesson remained. Pride is the enemy, Bruce said quietly. It blinds you, Tommy coughed, struggled. Listened. You never asked who I was, Bruce continued. You assumed. A pause. You treated someone as inferior without knowing anything about them. Tommy nodded weakly, tears mixed with sweat, not just from pain, but from realization. This is a lesson, Bruce said. Learn from it. He stood and picked up the mop again. The young fighter from earlier approached slowly, still in. Mr. Lee, he said, why go back to cleaning? Bruce paused, then looked at him. Simple. Because the floor still needs cleaning. A beat. Then because I said I would help. Another pause. Softer now. Because no task is beneath anyone. The young fighter nodded, understanding something deeper than words. Later, when Tommy could finally stand, he walked over, slowly, humbled. Changed, I'm sorry, he said quietly. Bruce looked at him, calm, steady. Don't apologize to me, he said. Apologize to the next person you think is beneath you. A pause. Then, be better. Tommy nodded. And this time there was no arrogance left, only respect. Will you teach me? He asked. Bruce smiled slightly. To learn from the janitor? Tommy lowered his eyes. I deserve that, he said. But yes. Bruce considered him for a moment, then nodded. Come tomorrow. And just like that, a champion was broken and rebuilt, not by force, not by domination, but by a lesson. 10 seconds long, one punch deep. A lesson the world would one day remember as legend. Because sometimes, the greatest fights aren't about winning. They're about waking up.